The Galactic Challenge. The vast galaxy was home to countless civilizations, each with its unique strengths and cultures. Among them was the mighty Zarkon Empire, known for its advanced technology, ruthless warriors, and a history of conquering weaker species. The Zarkons had been expanding their territory for centuries, crushing anyone who dared to oppose them. They were feared and respected throughout the galaxy, and they thrived on this fear. However, there was one species the Zarkons had yet to conquer: the humans. The Zarkons viewed humans as soft, emotional creatures who relied too much on their feelings. They believed that humans lacked the cold, calculating nature necessary to survive in a harsh galaxy. To the Zarkons, humans were nothing more than a minor nuisance, not worth the effort of conquest. But as the Zarkon Empire's borders continued to expand, they found themselves increasingly drawn to Earth. The Zarkons had always viewed emotions as a weakness, something to be suppressed and controlled. They could not comprehend how humans, who openly displayed their emotions and seemed to be driven by empathy and compassion, had managed to survive and even thrive in the galaxy. The Zarkon leaders saw humanity's emotional nature as a flaw that would be easily exploited. They believed that once they launched their attack, the humans would crumble under the pressure, unable to withstand the might of the Zarkon war machine. But humanity was not as weak as the Zarkons believed. Humans had faced countless challenges on their journey through the stars, and they had learned to adapt, to overcome, and to survive. Their emotions, far from being a weakness, had become one of their greatest strengths. Through their empathy, humans had forged strong alliances with other species, learned from their experiences, and developed a deep understanding of the galaxy and its inhabitants. The Zarkon leaders gathered in their Grand Council chamber, a massive hall filled with the most powerful and influential members of their society. The air was thick with anticipation as they discussed their plans for the invasion of Earth. They spoke of the humans with contempt, dismissing them as insignificant and easily conquered. But one voice, that of the Zarkon warlord Kor, urged caution. He had studied the humans more closely than his peers, and he had seen something in them that the others had not. "Underestimate the humans at your peril," Kor warned. "They are not like the other species we have conquered. They are unpredictable, and they have a resilience that cannot be explained by their physical strength or technological prowess. They are driven by something more, something we do not understand." The other Zarkon leaders scoffed at Kor's words, dismissing his concerns as paranoia. They believed that their superior technology and military might would be more than enough to crush the humans. The decision was made, the invasion would proceed as planned, and Earth would soon fall under Zarkon control. As the Zarkon fleet prepared for its journey to Earth, the humans were not unaware of the impending threat. Earth's leaders had been monitoring the movements of the Zarkon Empire, and they knew that it was only a matter of time before the Zarkons turned their attention towards humanity. The leaders of Earth gathered in a secret council, discussing their options and formulating a plan to defend their home. The humans knew that they could not match the Zarkons in terms of sheer firepower or numbers. The Zarkon fleet was vast and well-equipped, and their warriors were trained to be ruthless and efficient. But the humans had something that the Zarkons did not: the power of empathy. They understood the importance of connections, of building alliances, and finding common ground. They knew that their emotions, far from being a weakness, could be their greatest weapon. The Human Council decided to take a different approach to the impending invasion. Rather than meeting the Zarkons head-on in a battle they were likely to lose, they would use their empathy and understanding to outmaneuver their opponents. They would turn the Zarkons' own perceptions against them, using the very traits that the Zarkons saw as weaknesses to their advantage. As the Zarkon fleet approached Earth, the humans reached out to their allies across the galaxy, calling on the species they had helped and befriended over the years. The response was overwhelming. Species from all corners of the galaxy pledged their support, willing to stand with humanity against the Zarkon threat. The humans' empathy had forged bonds of friendship and loyalty that the Zarkons could not break. Meanwhile, human scientists and strategists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies and tactics that would give them an edge in the coming conflict. They knew that they could not win through brute force alone, so they focused on finding creative solutions. As the Zarkon fleet finally entered Earth's solar system, they were met not with fear or panic, but with a calm and resolute humanity, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only the strength and resolve of both sides, but also the very nature of what it meant to be strong. The Zarkons believed that their cold, calculated approach to conquest would ensure their victory, but the humans had something else in mind. They would show the galaxy that empathy, far from being a weakness, could be the most powerful force of all. The first contact. The Zarkon fleet descended upon Earth's solar system with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Hundreds of massive warships, bristling with advanced weaponry and shielded by impenetrable energy fields, cut through the void of space. The Zarkons had fought many battles, and they were confident this one would be no different. They expected fear, panic, and a quick surrender from the humans. But the humans had other plans. As the Zarkon fleet drew closer to Earth, they were met with an unexpected sight: a single human ship, small in comparison to the Zarkon behemoths, hovering just beyond the edge of the fleet's scanners. The ship was sleek, almost delicate-looking, and it bore the emblem of the Earth Alliance. The Zarkons were puzzled. Why would the humans send only one ship to meet them? Was this some kind of trick? On board the human vessel, Captain Elena Ramirez stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen that displayed the imposing Zarkon fleet. She knew the odds were against them, but she also knew that humanity had something the Zarkons didn't: the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to turn even the most dire situations to their advantage. Elena had been chosen for this mission not because of her combat skills, but because of her ability to communicate and connect with others, even those as seemingly alien as the Zarkons. "Open a channel to the Zarkon flagship," Elena ordered, her voice calm and steady. She knew that the first contact with the Zarkons would set the tone for the entire conflict, and she was determined to make it count. The communication officer nodded, and within moments the stern face of the Zarkon commander, General Valor, appeared on the view screen. His expression was one of barely concealed contempt as he looked down at the human captain. "Human," Valor began, his voice dripping with disdain. "You stand before the might of the Zarkon Empire. Surrender your planet and its resources now, and we may spare your people." Elena smiled faintly, unfazed by the general's threatening tone. "General Valor," she replied, her voice warm and welcoming, "we are aware of your reputation and the power of your fleet, but humanity is not here to fight. We are here to understand. We believe that there is more to be gained through cooperation than through conflict." Valor's eyes narrowed. He had expected resistance, perhaps even a desperate plea for mercy, but not this. The humans were supposed to be weak, emotional creatures, and yet this woman stood before him with a confidence that was almost unsettling. "You speak of cooperation, yet you are outmatched in every conceivable way. What could you possibly offer the Zarkon Empire that we cannot take by force?" Elena took a deep breath, knowing that this was the moment where everything could change. "We offer something that your empire has long forgotten: empathy. We offer the possibility of understanding each other, of finding common ground and working together to achieve something greater than either of us could alone." There was a long silence as Valor studied Elena's face, searching for any sign of deception. The idea of cooperation was foreign to the Zarkon way of thinking, where strength was everything and emotions were seen as a weakness. But there was something in Elena's eyes, a sincerity that even Valor could not easily dismiss. "You believe that emotions make you stronger?" Valor asked, his voice quieter now, as if genuinely curious. Elena nodded. "Yes, we do. Our empathy has allowed us to form alliances, to learn from others, and to grow in ways that you may not understand yet. We believe that through understanding we can avoid unnecessary conflict and find solutions that benefit everyone." Valor was silent for a moment, his mind racing. This was not what he had expected from the humans. He had prepared for battle, for resistance, but not for this. He knew that the Zarkon High Council would never agree to such a proposal. They would see it as a sign of weakness. But there was something about this human captain that made him hesitate. Could there be more to these humans than met the eye? "Your words are bold, Captain Ramirez," Valor finally said. "But words alone will not change the course of history. If you truly believe that your empathy can make a difference, then you will need to prove it." Elena smiled, sensing a glimmer of hope. "We are ready to prove it, General, but we need a chance to show you what we can do." Valor considered her words carefully. The Zarkon way was to conquer, to dominate, but perhaps there was room for a different approach. The humans were not like the other species the Zarkons had faced. They were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. But it also made them intriguing. "Very well," Valor said, his tone still guarded but with a hint of curiosity. "You will have your chance, Captain. But know this, if you fail, the full might of the Zarkon Empire will fall upon your planet and there will be no mercy." Elena nodded, knowing the stakes were high. "We understand, General. We will not disappoint you." The seeds of doubt. The Zarkon fleet lingered on the edge of the solar system, a dark cloud of impending doom that threatened to swallow Earth whole. General Valor stood at the helm of the flagship, staring at the blue planet on the view screen, his mind troubled by the recent encounter with the human captain, Elena Ramirez. Her words had been unexpected, unsettling even. They had sown the first seeds of doubt in his mind, seeds that he could not easily shake off. Valor was a warrior, born and bred for conquest. The Zarkon Empire had thrived for centuries through domination and fear, crushing any opposition that stood in its way. Yet there was something about the humans that was different. They did not react with the usual terror or defiance that Valor had come to expect from those they subjugated. Instead, they spoke of empathy, of understanding, of cooperation, concepts that were alien to the Zarkon way of thinking. The general's second-in-command, Commander Tarek, approached with a stern expression. "General, the fleet is ready to commence the assault." "We await your orders." Valor turned to face Tarek, his eyes narrowing slightly. "And what do you think of these humans, Commander? Do you believe they are as weak as they appear?" Tarek hesitated, a rare show of uncertainty. "They are strange, General. Their technology is inferior, their forces scattered, yet they do not seem afraid. They speak of peace, yet they prepare for war. It is unusual." Valor nodded slowly. "Indeed, they are not like the others. They do not cower in fear, nor do they lash out in blind anger. They offer cooperation, yet with the readiness to defend themselves. It is a contradiction." Tarek frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "General, with all due respect, these humans are weak. They cannot possibly stand against the might of the Zarkon Empire. We should crush them now before they have a chance to rally." Valor's gaze returned to the planet on the view screen. "And what if they are not as weak as they seem? What if their strength lies not in their weapons, but in their unity, in their resolve?" The commander shifted uneasily, not used to seeing his leader so contemplative. "Are you suggesting we hesitate, General? That we show mercy?" "Mercy is not what I suggest, Tarek," Valor replied, his tone sharp. "I suggest caution. There is something about these humans that we do not yet understand. They have sown seeds of doubt within our ranks, and that alone is cause for concern." As Valor spoke, the scene shifted to the human side of the equation. Captain Elena Ramirez was back on Earth, meeting with the leaders of the Earth Alliance. They were gathered in a secure underground bunker, the atmosphere tense but hopeful. Elena had relayed the encounter with the Zarkons, and now the fate of the planet rested on how they would proceed. "We've bought ourselves some time," Elena said, addressing the group. "But make no mistake, the Zarkons are still a very real threat. We need to prepare for the worst, while still holding out hope for the best." One of the Alliance members, a grizzled veteran named Admiral Stevens, spoke up. "You really think they'll listen to reason? From what we know, the Zarkons aren't exactly the negotiating type." The empathy experiment. The atmosphere on Earth had changed from one of pure tension to a simmering anticipation. Captain Elena Ramirez and the Earth Alliance were working tirelessly to prepare for what they knew could be a defining moment in human history. Despite the massive threat that loomed on the edge of their solar system, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that there was a way to turn this crisis into an opportunity. It was a dangerous gamble, but if it worked, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. In a secure underground laboratory, deep beneath the Earth's surface, a team of scientists and military strategists gathered around a series of holographic displays. These weren't ordinary scientists. They were the best minds humanity had to offer, drawn from every corner of the globe. They had been working on something that could tip the scales in there. Dr. Layla Hassan, a leading expert in neuroscience and a pioneer in the field of cognitive technology, stood at the forefront of this project. Her mind was racing, but her demeanor was calm and focused. She had been tasked with leading what had come to be known as the empathy experiment. It was a risky venture, but it was also humanity's best shot at countering the Zarkon threat in a way they would never expect. Elena arrived at the lab, her presence immediately commanding attention. She had been briefed on the project, but now she wanted to see it for herself. Dr. Hassan greeted her with a firm handshake, her eyes reflecting a mix of determination and exhaustion. "Captain, I'm glad you're here," Dr. Hassan said, leading Elena to the central console where the experiment's data was displayed. "What we're doing here is unprecedented. We're trying to weaponize empathy, to use it as a form of psychological warfare against the Zarkons." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Weaponize empathy? How does that even work?" Dr. Hassan gestured to the holographic displays, which showed complex neural networks and patterns of brain activity. Empathy is one of the most powerful forces in the human psyche. It's what allows us to connect, to understand, and to influence each other's emotions. The Zarkons, with their rigid militaristic society, have no concept of empathy as we understand it. We believe that if we can project our emotions, our empathy, into their minds, we can disrupt their thought processes, sow confusion, and possibly even turn them against each other. Elena nodded slowly, the weight of the plan beginning to sink in. "And how do you plan to do that?" Dr. Hassan pointed to a sleek device that resembled a helmet, connected to a series of computers and neural interfaces. "This is the empathy interface. It's designed to amplify and transmit the emotions of the wearer directly into the minds of the Zarkons. We've already conducted tests on simulated neural networks and with volunteers, and the results are promising. But it's never been tested on a real target, especially not one as complex as the Zarkon mind." Elena studied the device, her mind racing with possibilities and risks. "So, we're going to use this to broadcast our emotions to the Zarkon fleet? It's risky. What if it backfires? What if it makes them more hostile?" Dr. Hassan sighed, acknowledging the danger. "That's a possibility. But from what we know about Zarkon psychology, their minds aren't equipped to process such intense and foreign emotions. It could overwhelm them, cause disarray in their ranks. It might just give us the edge we need." Elena turned to the assembled scientists and military officers. "We don't have much time. The Zarkons could attack at any moment. If we're going to do this, we need to be ready for any outcome." The room buzzed with a mix of excitement and fear. The stakes were high, and everyone knew that failure was not an option. Meanwhile, on the Zarkon flagship, General Valor was growing increasingly uneasy. The human captain's words continued to echo in his mind, planting seeds of doubt that had only grown since their last encounter. His officers had noticed the change in him, and it was starting to affect the morale of the fleet. Valor had always prided himself on his clarity of purpose, but now he found himself questioning the very foundation of their mission. What if the humans were not as weak as they appeared? What if their offer of cooperation was not a sign of weakness, but a strategy he had failed to understand? The door to the war room slid open, and Commander Tarek entered, his expression as grim as ever. "General, the fleet is ready to commence the assault. We await your orders." Valor turned to face the view screen where Earth loomed large, a blue jewel in the darkness of space. "Commander, do you ever wonder if we are doing the right thing?" Tarek blinked, caught off guard by the question. "The right thing, General? We are Zarkons. We conquer, we expand. That is our way." Valor nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "Yes, that is our way. But is it the only way? The humans offer something different, something I cannot fully grasp. They speak of empathy, of understanding, of cooperation. These are not the tools of conquest, but they seem to wield them with a strength we do not understand." Tarek frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "General, we must not let their words deceive us. They are weak, and we must crush them before they have a chance to retaliate." Vylor remained silent, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The seeds of doubt had taken root deep within him, and he could no longer ignore them. Back on Earth, the empathy interface was ready. Elena, along with a group of selected volunteers, prepared to engage with the device. They knew the risks, but they also knew that this was humanity's best shot at survival. As the device powered up, the room was filled with a soft hum, and the air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Elena took a deep breath, her mind focused on the task ahead. She had faced danger before, but this was different. This was an experiment in the truest sense, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. Dr. Hassan monitored the data, her fingers flying over the controls as she initiated the transmission. "Here we go," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. The empathy interface activated, sending out waves of amplified human emotions, empathy, compassion, understanding, directly towards the Zarkon fleet. It was a gamble, a shot in the dark, but it was all they had. On the Zarkon flagship, the effects were immediate. Vylor and his officers felt a strange, overwhelming surge of emotions, unlike anything they had ever experienced. It was disorienting, confusing, and powerful. For the first time, the Zarkons felt the full force of human empathy, and it shook them to their core. Vylor stumbled, clutching the edge of the console as he struggled to make sense of the flood of feelings that had invaded his mind. His officers were similarly affected, some collapsing to the floor, others shouting in confusion. "What is happening?" Tarek shouted, his voice tinged with panic. Vylor tried to steady himself, his mind reeling from the intensity of the emotions. "It's the humans. They are doing this." The fleet was in disarray, the well-disciplined ranks of the Zarkon military thrown into chaos by an assault unlike any they had ever faced. The seeds of doubt had bloomed into full-blown fear and confusion, and the once invincible fleet was now teetering on the edge of collapse. The empathy experiment had worked. The humans had found a way to turn their greatest strength into a weapon, and it was more powerful than they could have ever imagined. The stage was set for the final confrontation, but it was clear that the balance of power had shifted. The Zarkons were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been. Humanity had found a way to fight back, not with weapons of destruction, but with the power of their own hearts and minds. The turning point, as the Zarkon fleet reeled from the unexpected onslaught of human emotions, the control room on the Earth Alliance flagship buzzed with a tense energy. Captain Elena Ramirez stood at the center, her eyes locked on the massive view screen that displayed the chaos unfolding among the Zarkon ships. The empathy experiment had worked, but the true test was just beginning. "Status report," Elena demanded, her voice cutting through the room's anxious murmurs. Lieutenant Parker, her communications officer, quickly responded. "The Zarkon fleet is in disarray, Captain. Their formations are breaking down, and we're picking up unusual energy readings from several of their ships. It's like they're losing control of their systems." Dr. Layla Hassan, who had been monitoring the experiment from a nearby console, looked up, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "The empathy waves are overwhelming their neural networks, just as we hoped. But the intensity of their reaction, it's stronger than we anticipated." Elena nodded, her mind racing through the possibilities. The Zarkons, who had always been so cold and calculating, were now vulnerable in a way that no one had ever imagined. It was a turning point, but also a dangerous one. If the humans pushed too hard, the Zarkons might react with even greater force, driven by fear and confusion. "We need to capitalize on this moment," Elena said, her tone decisive. "But we have to be careful. We don't want to provoke them into a full-blown panic. Open a channel to the Zarkon flagship." The room fell silent as Parker established the connection. A moment later, the stern face of General Valor appeared on the view screen. His usual air of authority was, "General Valor," Elena began, her voice steady, "you felt the strength of our emotions. You now understand that humanity is not as weak as you believed. We don't want to fight you, but we will defend our home. This is your chance to reconsider your actions." Valor's eyes flickered with a mix of emotions, fear, anger, and something else that Elena couldn't quite place. He was silent for a moment, as if struggling to find his words. You have turned our own minds against us," he finally said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I don't understand how you've done this, but it's clear that we underestimated you." Elena seized the opportunity to press her point. "We don't seek to dominate or destroy. We want to coexist. But if you continue this path of conquest, you'll face resistance not just from our weapons, but from the very essence of who we are as a species." Valor stared at her, the turmoil in his mind evident on his face. The weight of the decision before him was almost palpable. He had always believed in the strength of the Zarkon Empire, in their right to conquer and expand. But now he was confronted with something entirely new, an enemy that fought with emotions, with empathy, a force he had never been trained to counter.